Okay, we start from Mikol Malka in the middle of his base. So to understand the shard that she asked in the first ice about the means by which the Dalit Minim, by which we reveal the Haftorah of Rosh Hashanah, Keser, Yitnu, the question was, they're not pure and absolute unity. So to understand this, Hemshech to the Rosh Hashanah Maimer, the two Pirushim in Arimimcha Lekai HaMelech. Lekai has two opposite meanings. It means godly and it means koyach. And koyach means, by definition, something which is separate. So how does the same word convey mikol mokim? It's up the yesh gamayli b'koyach l'gabe oir. Oir is megala, the moker, and so on. Koyach does not. But the maila is sha'oir en pearl inyan shal yischadshus. The oir does not create anything novel. The oir merely reveals what is. Turn the light on, that's all. There's no change. When there's an energy that's released, that changes whatever it is released to. Now, what's these chachas we're talking about? As explained in the previous Maimer, we're in Ois Beis, 2/3 down. For the Eibishter to create Yesh Ma'ayin, there's nothing more novel than that. Nothing. The reality is there's only God, and the impossible has happened. There's God and something else. So that is a real Hischachas of which there's nothing greater. And that is an expression of the Eibishter's Koyach, not Oyer. If explained at length, just revealing that there is a God will never create something else. On the contrary, it precludes something else. If Oyer is Megalad, there is a God, and there's going to be nothing else. So the Eibishter says, nonetheless, he can do it and will, and does, and that's therefore called this koyach, something novel. And on the contrary, creating Yesh Ma'ayin expresses God deeper than the greatest possible revelation. And we explained it like maybe somebody wants to, we spent probably a few days in total on this very point, why Oyer, meaning God revealing himself in a way of Oyer, cannot and does not pale Yesh Ma'ayin. Anybody want to offer an explanation to a McGill student using pure English? Yeah.
It's just an extension of nature as create he's not beyond creator. The only way to be beyond creator is if he separated something from himself.
So you're saying that if it reveals him as creator, then it does create Yesh, then it could create Yesh Ma'ayin.
No, R is still connected to the
Ma'ayin, yeah.
R. And so in order to create Yesh Ma'ayin, maybe trying to put a that's the correct.
True. I don't know if McGill understands anything yet. What you're saying is true. So, by something right. So the point, right. So the point is that you cannot create something.
That's a yesh.
You cannot create a creator, no matter what. Create a small c, big C. You cannot produce anything that you don't have. That is not you. Okay. By definition reveals that there is a God. Can only create something that's going to know that to one degree or another. It cannot create something that cannot know this is a God. And that's the union of koyach. Koyach is a revelation that is not, that does not convey, is not traceable that there is a God. And koyach, therefore, when we say that God reveals his koyach, he is expressing this absolutely impossible that only God can do, create something out of nothing that feels completely independent. Like him. Like him. He is completely independent of anything. And he creates that which feels in its own reality that it's independent because it is an expression of him. Koyach is expression of Atzmos. Oy is expression of Moir. And Moir cannot create Yesh Ma'ayin. That's the formula. Let's get that formula straight. Oy is expression of Moir. Koyach is expression of Atzmos. And Moir cannot create Yesh Ma'ayin. If you get the Hebrew formula straight, then we'll try and explain it to a Megillah student. But is that formula straight in our own heads? Does it make sense to you? That Oir can only express Moir and cannot create Yesh Ma'ayin for the reason we just said, and other related, all really one reason. And Koyach expresses Atzmos that creates Yesh Ma'ayin. That the Yesh HaNivri is a reflection of the Yesh HaAmiti that says, I am that I am. Moir and Oir cannot create something I am that I am. On the contrary, Oir says in all of its levels that there is Moir. And that's where I come from. Where I come from is integral to Oir. Where I come from. Oir says I come from Oir. No matter how dimmed it is, it says I come from Oir. But the Yesh HaNivri says I don't come from anywhere. So it's not the expression of Moir, it's expression of Atzmos that is indeed comes from nowhere. He is the true I am that I am. That's how he made us. But that's what it means. But then did a h'tchk mekoyla yois masher binyan ha'or. The koyach expresses, h'tchk means the power literally of the source, the ultimate source, more than Oir. Oir only reveals Moir, a luminary, that a God that allows himself to be known. But Koyach expresses a much deeper truth. And as you were saying, Moir, it's another point, it's related. I keep on repeating it. Moir produces Oir. Oir is already otherness, not separate, but otherness, an appreciation of God. The whole otherness is the appreciation of God, but there's still otherness. But Atzmos doesn't engender an appreciation of God. It creates an entity that says, I am completely, reflective of his own I am. So Koyach expresses God beyond a presence that can be known or is known, which is otherness. Again, what kind of otherness? An otherness that says there's a God, but still an otherness. But Atzmos creates a reality in its own world where there's nothing but it. And that's truly reflective of Atzmos, where there's nothing but God. That's the h'tchk of Mekoyre more than the Inyan Ha'or. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, somewhat. Gentlemen, you're taking notes. The good. That's good. Otherwise,
like we said, that only Yesh Ma'ayin created it. Right.
Only the Yesh HaMiti can create a Yesh. So we're saying that only the Yesh HaMiti can create a Yesh HaNivra. Only the I am that I am of God can create the I am that I am of us. Oir is going to always produce something that's bottled to the Moir, to one degree or another. It's dovok that's bottled that says there's a God, there's a creator. Even Shabakay Chaliki Shulamayla Yesh Beis HaMailis. Well, how does the word Elikai convey both opposites? Because it's both Mailis, not the Chesroinus, but the Mailis of Oir and Koyach. Hein Mailis HaKoyach. The chesaron, what's the chesaron of koyach? Yeah. Chesaron of koyach, he produced this monster that says, I am that I am. This arrogant, beyond arrogant, ignorant arrogance. That's terrible. But the Maila is, that's all from our perspective, it's a terrible thing. The truth is, it's a wonderful thing. David has created a Yesha Nivra that reveals him, the Yesha Amiti. So mitzad the Maila, there's no Soren. It's for God, it's not for us, it's not traceable, but for God, it's all him. So yes, Beza Mailas, hey Mailas HaKoyach Shapelin Shal Yitzchachos. The word Elekai is saying that the Eibishter Koyach, the Eibishter creates something novel. What's that novel? Bria Yesh Mayin. Vein Mailas Ha'oir, but in his creating, for us, Koyach exhausts us. For us, Koyach creates a shinoi. Just being doesn't change you. You are. The Oir is just, you are, just emanating your presence. Not Koyach is you're doing something. So Koyach makes you tired or makes you stronger, whatever is exercise. It changes you. But the Maila of Oir is, notwithstanding the Eibishter creates Yesh Ma'ayin, which is Inyan Shel Koyach, he has the Maila of Oir. As far as God's concerned, that it's all him and he's not changed in any way by it. Clear? The Mailas of both? Let's spell it out. Mitzad L'Maila, the Maila of Koyach is what? And the biggest ischachis is, the Maila of Oir is, there's no change in him. He's not affected by it. Koyach changes you. When you express energy, you're getting stronger, weaker, you're changing. And moreover, while you're doing one thing, you can't do a second thing. It engages you. That's all these limitations, Koyach. So none of that applies to Hashem. Like, just naturally emanating, and there's effortless, and there's no change. Effort also. Changing is because you invested effort, so you're building a muscle, you're getting strong. Something, you're changing. But for the Eibishter, there's no change, and therefore we call it Oir too. And Lekai means both Oir and means Koyach. Lekai means expression of Atzmos, something novel and ischachos. It also means Oir because there's no change and it's effortless. As he concludes, that's why the word Lekai means both Koyach and Oir. The Lahir is to show, to convey, sheyesh boy by the Eibishter Beis HaMailas, the mile of Oir and the mile of Koyach. The mile of Koyach is that he's invested. The mile of Oir is doesn't change you. You're invested in something, you're changed. You're affected. He's both invested and yet not affected. That needs to be qualified because the truth is he is affected by his choice. He's affected, but when I'm saying now he's affected by our behavior. He was talking about the etzem bishavos. The etzem bishavos, which is made of koyach, doesn't change him. We go into a little sin, he's all bent out of shape. He is affected. But the etzem bishavos and the mitzvah brings him great nachas. So God is affected, but that's all mitzad neshamas Yisrael, and that's all mitzad we're rooted in essence, and that's a whole different discussion. But he was talking about the etzem bishavos of the yesh and nivra. Is that clear? That last thing I just said. So in some ways, he's affected by creation per se. Is he affected by you and me? Yeah. That's because we're in the shamas. That's not that, but here is talking about Yisavos, about creation. Now, those Gimel, going ahead, he's really going to go very basic now. Really, we could almost just translate these words and not offer any commentary because it's going to go very basic. So let's begin. Ois Gimel. Yeah? We still have to understand מהו ההכרח שכוח הפועל שבנפעל יש בו גם מיילס האור שדוב מקודם. What compels us to say that the Eibishter's power in creation is not like ordinary power, namely separate from him? What's the hechrach to say that it also contains always the mile of Or, that it's dovak and not separate? Why can't we say that God produced something separate from him, expressed something separate? Simple, like disarmingly back to basics question, understanding Achtus Hashem. So let's let the mind will speak for us. The Bishloima, we understand that we talk about God expressing Or, we're talking about the Or Insof and Atzilus, basically. To say that there's no change in the source, the Or Insof does not change the source. We have to conclude that surely for God there's no change. Commission Kosev, as the pasuk says, and the violation is I am God, I have not changed. Avleina moving, but we still have to understand what compels us in Seichel to say never mind Eidin Sof and Atzilus, but Biyah and this world ain't a different Makayda, that this Koyach that God's invested is separate from him. Why can't we say that? What's the hechach that it is united like Or? This is really, again, very basic. I'm just going to give you a heads up because the end his answer is, well, everybody knows so what do you mean separate? I mean, that's how he's going to answer, kind of. So we have to go a little bit deeper. What's the habman? What's the maskana? But let's just take it at face value so far, as we're like addressing the question of God's unity fundamentally. But we're making the question stronger. It would appear that it's absolutely appropriate to say that the koyach hapel in fact is separate from the source. And it's not like Or. Why? What is this koyach hapel? Didn't kolos in the koyach hapel shaykh rak lachat tzimtzum. Now, there's two tzimtzumim, friends. Is he going to talk about the tzimtzum that produces shtalshlos altogether, and then a similar tzimtzum between Atzilus and Biyah, macro and micro. So as he's going to explain that. So when do we say, when is koyach hapel shaykh? Only achar tzimtzum. Because there's no room for creation. Before the tzimtzum, the Ein Sof, this is quoting from the Hitzchayim, filled what would later become the vacuum. Again, these words are deceptively simple and lead to gross misinterpretation. At any rate, before the tzimtzum is not shaykh, there's no room, there's no place for creation. The Ein Sof fills everything. We're taking this really, very simply. But Proteus in more detail. Not just lifnei, not just before the first tzimtzum, it's also true. When we start speaking about koyach, what does that emerge below Atzilus? Because the Hashem shaleishai klolas in isavas kedem atzimtzum, just like obviously we can't talk about creation before tzimtzum. There's no place, room for it. Ein Sof fills anything, fills everything. And what is Ein Sof? B'chinas Atzilus the klolos. Who can tell me? Who remembers? Atzilus the klolos, B'riya the klolos, Yitzira the klolos, Asiyah the klolos. What the parallel is, what they mean. No, we counted this many times. It is familiar, right? So I'll help you start from the bottom up. Asiya, the klolus, is what we call is Atzilus. The macro and the micro. No? Anybody remember? So Atzilus, the klolus is Ein Sof, Bri, the klolus is Adam Kadmon. Yitzir, the klolus is Keser, and Atzilus is Asiya. Asiya, the klolus is Atzilus. Yeah, that's the general. So the point here is that just like we can't speak about creation, the big tzimtzum, you can't speak about creation really after the next main tzimtzum, which is after Atzilus, which is a reflection. Atzilus is a reflection of Ein Sof inside the text. Even the lowest level of Atzilus Malchus. But B'yoyse B'Atzilus, as Atzilus is this divine world, like shaykh in Yisavus Hayesh. Without a tzimtzum, it's not shaykh that there should be a mitzvah v'yesh of a separate entity that feels independent, completely precluded from this world of unity. It's called Elam Ha'achdos, Tahirahi. So even though Malchus is the last level of Atzilus, as the Eibishter's word, and the word is something you project to somebody outside of you, but this is the word within me still. Before the Tzimtzum, even Malchus is still bound up in the expression of the divine, yet there's no room for anything other than God. And in order for the koich to emerge, this power that creates a yesh, so first of all, you need like two big tzimtzumim. The first big tzimtzum. That's the tzimtzum that produces what? Which is in Hatzilus the Klolus, in the Ein Sof. A tzimtzum shebepchinas Hatzilus the Klolus. That's the tzimtzum that plays on the Ein Sof. And that's not enough still. It's still too divine and godly. There's got to be another tzimtzum between Hatzilus and Biyah. Showing you how Mesach HaPasuk it was. That's the Zohar speaks about this veil. This veil is the veil between Atzilus and Biyah. Now, continuing his question. So what's going to, where is the nifal going to emerge from the power that creates it? It's post Tzimtzum and Parsa. So the conclusion of the question is, you just described a divine energy that's separate from its source. This is God's Tzimtzum, Tzimtzum A, Tzimtzum B, that produces what? Now an energy that's not connected to the source, and therefore creates a Yesh HaNivra, Eilamus. Now continuing the question. And also the way it creates. The way it creates also points to being separate from its source. It's also we would conclude that it is unlike something that God separates from himself. Why? Since what's he producing? Finite, limited creatures. There's a limit to the time they're going to exist. The Gemara says the world exists for 6,000 years. So therefore, in them is going to be this finite thing as well, this finite koyach. It's going to expire after 6,000 years, which it all implies disconnect from its infinite eternal source. We're looking at this like, with childlike eyes from the beginning, this whole creation business. So we would conclude, so it must be that since the creation is not going to last forever, so that force that brings into being is also not a forever force, is limited, and therefore not like connected to the infinite, eternal God. It's a Therefore, that the koich that creates, that's invested in finite creations that have an expiry date, is a koich mugbal, is a limited force. Ki bedavar mugbal, something which is finite, like yuchal is slapshus koich built in mugbal. You can't get infinite into finite. And if God's producing finite creations, there's got to be a finite investure. That's what the Tzimtzum did. And therefore, that's not oil. It's separate. Giving this sense of this limitation and boundary to his expression means, obviously, it's severed from his infinite eternal source. Are we hearing the question? Like the seemingly simple question. Did the Megillah student would ask? Because if what God is expressing is going to be patently attached to him, expression of him, he'll be infinite like he is. What has produced this finite power because he separates it from his infinite source and being. So why are we saying that Lamaila, the koich is like it's davuk? No. Oir is davuk, and koich is which God separates from himself. And it must be the way for 3 reasons just gave. Number one, you need this. Let's review the 3 reasons. Look in the text. What's the 3 reasons he gave so far? What's the first thing he said? Since the Koich HaPel comes what? After Tzimtzum, and then even detail. There's the first great Tzimtzum, and that's not enough. Then there's a second Tzimtzum, post Atzilus. Then we can start talking about what? The Koich HaPel and the Nivra and the Yesh. So therefore what? Why do you need a Tzimtzum? The whole point of a Tzimtzum is because the Ein Sof feels there's no place for what? Anything other than God. Now you make place. That's something separate. It's no point. The point is to create something that is other separate. Then the second thing. You it's 2 things, not 3 things. There's 3 reasons.
They are the next is that they feel separate.
They are limited. Yeah, what was that? That was the second thing or the third thing?
I think the second thing is that if they're limited, then what's creating them is limited. Class is limited.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing is the hergish.
Yeah.
The second thing is to create something that has an expiry date means that the power that's in it expires. That means it's limited and therefore separate. It's not like oil. The final thing. Third thing. How do we feel? We feel separate. The given since creation feels separate. Look at these words. Where did this come from? Did I make up this feeling? Did I produce this? Did I feel separate? Again, it has to be born for God's sakes. So, the fact that I feel this way without knowing anything else means the way I'm created is I'm created by something that is separate from its source. That's why it produces me to feel separate. You follow the Hergish itself tells me that the force that creates me must be separate because look what it produced. Me, that feels separate. Clear? How can I feel separate? It must be that what's invested in me is separate from the source that produced me. I didn't make myself. So we've got to say that somehow the creative force is separate from the source itself, from God. And that concludes his question. Why are we saying that koyach has the mile of oil that's davuk? No. Oil in itself is davuk, atilis is davuk, and the godly force after that produces us separate beings is separate from him, which is which therefore it's finite, and it's invested in finite creatures, expiry date, and it produces creatures that have a sense of independence because it is independent, because it's produced by an independent, separate force. So therefore we conclude the koyach that creates Eshmain is not like Eir. It's not Davuk. What we have to say? Okay, God isn't changed by it. That we can understand. But it's Davuk. Where's the Dvekus? And this is a huge statement. And the answer is going to be, but everybody knows in Meliovאוויטש, so it's not so. So Members, yeah. So I'm going to tell you in the last minutes that we have here that it was a Toshin, the middle Mems ever dropped this bomb at the Fabrengen. It turned the whole Chabad Biel upside down, starting with the Biel. That these havas could be in a way, it's not constant. Mamish different. Which is it's against Achtas Hashem, whatever. It's a whole thing then. The Mitzad Atzmas is not Gdorim at all. Whatever.
That it could create something
The Mamish separate, yeah. Which the whole of this is the Seichel is that that's not possible. To explain in Seichel that Achtas Hashem. This is kind of what he's touching on here. But the answer is going to be, let's just start upon him in a Meliovאוויטש, and it's not this way. Let's learn Yitnu. It was Mem Gimel Mem Dalet, or maybe Mem Hey even. It was a huge back and forth in the Horas of Biyurim. We spoke about it. The next Fabrengen and the next Fabrengen, responding to people. Okay, we'll learn this the next two lines. So in addition to the main thing, it's a simple matter. We have to prove this. Just our faith in God. We're talking about separate. There's no place void of him. There's nothing outside of him. This emunah forces us to say, not they are separate, and not the koyach that produces them is separate. For sure, they're not separate. They're not separate. And for sure, the koyach that produces them is also is not separate from him. The yois b'pchinas different chas v'shalom. The whole kasha like a chas v'shalom. And he says, this is a given by every Jew, and not learning that anything, simplest Jew. The light tzarech b'birim esbeidim doesn't need explanations. Nothing other than the Eibishter, nothing is separate. Like he says in Tanya Perkman Beis. In addition to that, in Igam mitzad hasagas haseichel, that's where the rest of the Maimon is going to go. Even mitzad seichel, moving hechrech, we're going to explain in detail now. Shekoyach hapel, notwithstanding the tzimtzum, it's not separate. Like a mekoyach hazrika, not like the parallel for us. When you throw something, shenasik nifred mekoyach shebayat kalakaman, it's separate, not traceable, and it is separate. You throw something, walk away, a person could die, and the thing's flying. If you collapse and die, and the stone is still flying that he produced. It's just koyach completely indifferent. That's koyach lamata. But we're going to explain in seichel that by the Eibishter in seichel, not just beside the emunah, it's not and can't be this way. I the tzimtzum, all the hakabala, all the questions we asked, the hergish, that's going to be addressed in the Maimon. So it's a very fundamental Maimon in what? In Achtas Hashem, Pashat. In the Meliovאוויטש. Yeah, you have a question? Pardon?
Is this different or from what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that the basically koyach from Shem Elokim is the same koyach atzmi from Shem Havai that they
Yeah. It all comes down to that. We'll see Havayu Elokim. The tzimtzum is not kipshuta. It's only from our perspective. But I haven't learned
In
further.
fact, there's a Helma Hester, he made the Helma Hester just like he made the Gilui, so
It's all him. But that's the general answer. I haven't learned further. Obviously, this Maimon is going to be a profound nuance, more than that, more than one nuance, a revelation that's not obvious in Tanya or anywhere else. So can't wait to learn it. We'll find out. All right, friends. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I'm so disturbed.